Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be setting sail for some pretty treacherous waters. Early 1800s, South Atlantic. Just picture this. You're on a remote island, there's a wrecked ship, and a pretty daring rescue attempt that quickly goes south. Mutiny, betrayal, the whole 9 yards. This Deep Dive. Story of the American sealing ship Nanina. It's going to be a wild ride, so buckle up.
Yeah, this story, it really just throws you right into the age of sail. Fortunes made and lost, international tensions. You could just end up in a full-blown conflict at any moment, just like that.
We've got some pretty incredible source material for this one. Original accounts, historical records, even some personal letters that give us a real sense of the people, the people who lived through this remarkable chapter in maritime history.
It's really captivating as this story. It really highlights the risks and rewards of the sealing industry back then. You gotta remember, this was a time when seal skins and oil, these were highly prized commodities.
Oh, yeah.
They used them for everything. Clothing, luggage, lamp oil, even medicine.
Wow. So that demand, that's what drove ships like the Nanina,
Yeah.
the far corners of the globe.
Exactly.
They're braving incredible dangers.
Yeah.
And all for these valuable resources.
Right, yeah. And the Falklands. With all the seals and sea elephants, they were a prime target for these expeditions.
I bet.
But it was a harsh environment, windswept, rugged, and those waters surrounding the islands, treacherous, even for experienced sailors.
Oh, I bet. So let's set the stage here.
Yeah.
1812, United States. Still a young nation, finding its footing on the world stage, but tensions are simmering with Great Britain.
Yeah, and that tension, it's playing out on the high seas. British warships stopping American merchant ships, searching them, and even impressing American sailors into service in the British Navy.
Wow.
Trade restrictions are tightening. It's a powder keg ready to explode.
Oh, yeah. And right in the middle of all of this, you've got the Nanina, a brig about 70 to 80 feet long that's roughly the size of a modern-day bus, but built entirely of wood and designed to withstand those harsh seas.
And they set sail from Hudson, New York. A crew of 13, including, this is where it gets interesting, 5 former captains.
5 former captains.
Yeah.
What was the dynamic like on board?
Oh, can you imagine? All those personalities, the experience, the potential for conflict.
Yeah.
You've got Captain Charles Barnard, known for his,
Yeah.
tough, no-nonsense leadership style, trying to maintain order. With a crew full of men who are used to giving orders, not taking them.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for disaster,
Right.
especially with the whole, tense situation with the British.
And it wasn't just personalities. These were highly skilled seamen. They knew the risks, and they prepared meticulously.
I bet.
We're talking 10,000 wooden pegs, all for drying those sealskins.
Wow.
Disassembled shallop, called the Young Nanina. This was for navigating the shallow waters around the islands, and they had provisions for a long and arduous voyage.
They were clearly in it for the long haul, but they also knew time was of the essence. War with Great Britain, it seemed almost inevitable.
And they barely escaped the impending embargo, anchoring off Sandy Hook, just as the news of the war declaration reached them.
Wow.
Close call.
So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do they risk running the British blockade and returning home? Or do they stay put and hope the conflict blows over?
And remember, it's not just the external threat of the British. You've got internal tension simmering, too. Charles Barnard's leadership already being tested. His own father, Valentine Barnard, he was one of those former captains on board, steps in to try and calm the situation.
Of course.
He recognizes the danger of a divided crew, especially in uncertain times.
For sure.
But despite these early challenges, the Nanina eventually makes it to the Falklands, September 1812.
Just imagine that. Land after months at sea, this rugged, windswept landscape, teeming with the very creatures they've come so far to hunt. That must have been a victory, but also the start of a whole new set of challenges.
Absolutely.
So they've made it, this remote archipelago.
Yeah.
1812, war breaks out, and they're surrounded by seals. What was their life like day to day?
You can almost think of it as like a constant cycle. Hunting, processing, preserving.
Okay.
So they would anchor the Nanina in a safe harbor and then use the Young Nanina, their smaller shallop, to actually reach those islands where the seals and the sea elephants were.
These weren't exactly like gentle giants they were dealing with.
No, not at all. They could be really formidable. They would use clubs and lances to hunt them.
Oh, wow.
It was dangerous work and physically demanding, too.
I bet. Harsh environment, brutal work, long way from home. And a war is raging. What was their thinking at this point?
Well, they made the tough decision to stay in the Falklands.
Really?
It was a gamble for sure, because returning home meant risking capture by the British.
Right.
But staying put, well, that meant being cut off from all news and supplies.
Oh, wow.
So they were hoping for a swift end to the conflict. But in the meantime, they really focused on that task at hand. Securing as many sealskins as possible.
Makes sense. And this is where the story takes a turn, right?
It does.
Another of the ship's exact
Enters the picture.
British vessel called the Isabella.
The Isabella. Okay.
Now, the Isabella, that's a completely different story.
Okay.
She's carrying 54 passengers and crew, a real mix of people on board, soldiers, former convicts being transported to new settlements, even some women and children.
Wow.
They were on a journey from Australia to England,
Okay.
a route that takes them right around treacherous Cape Horn.
I mean, they were facing their own set of challenges even before they reached the Falklands, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their captain, a man named Hickton, was by all accounts not up to the task.
Oh, no.
He made a series of really poor decisions
Mhm.
that put the ship and everyone on board in danger, storms, near starvation, even a near mutiny by the crew.
That sounds like a nightmare voyage.
Yeah, it was a harrowing experience for sure. They barely made it around Cape Horn. And then, to make matters worse, they're struck by a severe storm off the coast of the Falklands.
Oh, no.
The Isabella was driven right onto those rocks and wrecked. A shipwreck on top of everything else. It's hard to imagine how anyone survived that.
It really is, but it's a testament to the courage and skill of another captain on board, a man named Richard Brooks.
Okay.
He managed to steer that wrecked ship
Uh-huh.
close enough to shore that most of the passengers and crew could actually scramble to safety.
A real hero. So now you have two groups of survivors stranded on these remote islands, thousands of miles from home, in the middle of a war. What happens next?
Well, months go by.
Wow.
The survivors of the Isabella, they're just struggling to survive, scavenging whatever they can from the wrecked ship, and then fate intervenes.
The NATO?
The Nanina.
Wow.
While on a sealing expedition, the crew discovers the Isabella survivors. And remember, these nations are at war,
Right.
but Captain Barnard and his crew, they make a remarkable decision.
They don't hesitate to help.
No, not at all. They recognize the shared humanity in this situation,
Of course.
the desperate circumstances. They agree to take them on board, transport them to safety.
That's incredible. I mean, rescuing 54 additional people, especially on a ship already loaded with valuable cargo.
Yeah.
I mean, that presents a whole new set of challenges.
Oh, logistically, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
They're anchored quite a distance from the wreck site. And the weather, well, it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
So Barnard decides to take a small hunting party, which included some of those British Marines from the
Okay.
Isabella, to get the Nanina ready for the journey. He leaves the rest of the survivors on the island, promising to return as soon as possible.
It sounds like a sensible plan. Get the ship prepared, gather supplies, make sure there's enough room for everyone. What could go wrong?
Well, this is where the story takes a bit of a dark turn.
Uh-oh.
While Barnard and his party are away, a group of the British crew and Marines on board the Nanina, they stage a mutiny.
They turn on their rescuers.
Yeah, they claim they're tired of waiting, that the weather's too dangerous to delay. They force the remaining American crew to set sail back to the Isabella survivors without Barnard and his party. But some accounts suggest there was a more sinister motive.
What do you mean?
They wanted the Nanina for themselves,
Right.
all that valuable cargo.
Oh, wow.
They knew that ship was laden with seal skins and oil, a potential fortune,
Yeah.
whatever their motivations,
Yeah.
their actions, a shocking betrayal of that trust
Yeah.
that Barnard and his crew had shown them.
So the mutineers have taken the Nanina. They've abandoned Barnard and his men. They're going back to get those remaining Isabella survivors. It seems like they're about to get away with it.
Yeah, but fate,
Hmm.
as it often does, had other plans.
Oh.
As the Nanina approaches Eagle Island, a British warship, the Nancy appears on the horizon.
Oh, no. Talk about being caught between a rock and hard place.
Right, so the Nancy's captain, a man named Danda, he sees that Nanina laden with what appears to be a very valuable cargo of seal skins.
I see.
But he has no idea about the American rescue efforts, or the mutiny.
He just sees a prize.
Exactly, a prize of war. So he boards the Nanina, finds the British crew and the Isabella survivors, and declares the ship a legitimate prize,
He does.
takes the American crew prisoner,
Oh, my gosh.
essentially rewarding those mutineers for their betrayal.
So, the Isabella survivors are rescued. The mutinous British crew are hailed as heroes.
Hmm.
And Barnard and his men, stranded on a desolate island, prisoners of war.
Yeah.
What a turn of events.
It really is. And, it's a stark reminder of the complexities and moral ambiguities of wartime.
Yeah.
Dana, acting within the letter of the law, seizes the Nanina and its cargo, enriching himself and his crew. He even had the opportunity to rescue those remaining Americans.
He did.
But he chose not to.
It's a tough situation to judge. I mean, especially from our modern perspective.
Right.
War is brutal.
Absolutely.
Decisions have to be made quickly.
Yeah.
Based on incomplete information a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to feel for Barnard and his men.
I know.
Abandoned by those they tried to help. Forgotten by their own country.
And left to face an uncertain fate. It'd be easy to think that this is where their story ends. Just a tragic footnote in, the annals of maritime history.
Right.
But remember, those 5 former captains on board the Nanina?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it turns out their experience, and particularly, the ingenuity of Charles Barnard's father, Valentine, that's going to prove crucial to their survival.
Okay, what do you mean? What did they do?
Well, remember that small boat, just 17.5 feet long, that the Isabella survivors had sent out to search for help.
Yeah.
It had returned with the Nancy, and now it was basically abandoned on the island.
They weren't seriously considering using that to escape, were they? It's barely bigger than a rowboat.
Well, desperate times call for desperate measures.
True?
They patched it up the best they could, loaded what few supplies they could salvage.
Wow.
And with Valentine Barnard at the helm, they set sail for the mainland.
I can't believe that. Thousands of miles. Open ocean. In a boat that small. That just sounds like a suicide mission.
It was an incredibly risky undertaking. Storms, hunger, thirst, and of course, the constant threat of being swamped just by a single rogue wave.
Scary.
But Valentine, years of experience at sea, he managed to navigate by the stars, keep them on course.
That is amazing.
And they eventually landed in Patagonia.
They did.
After an arduous journey, made their way to Rio de Janeiro, where, as Americans, they were still technically prisoners of war.
Wow. So what happened then? Were they imprisoned?
They were held for a time, but ultimately released through a prisoner exchange.
So?
Charles Barnard reunited with his father, and those surviving crew members,
Incredible.
against all odds, they'd made it home.
What a story. It's a testament to, the human spirit.
It really is. The story of the Nanina, the Isabella, and the Nancy, it's more than just an adventure, It's a window into a bygone era, a time when the world was a much larger and much more dangerous place.
Absolutely.
And it forces us to think about, those moral complexities of war.
Sure.
And the choices people make when they're faced with those extreme circumstances.
It's a story of courage, compassion,
but also betrayal.
Opportunism.
And it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope and the will to survive can prevail.
That's a powerful message.
It really is. And, it also leaves us with some thought-provoking questions.
Yeah, like what?
Imagine yourself in the shoes of those abandoned American sailors.
Yeah.
How would you have reacted?
Right.
What choices would you have made? Could you have forgiven the British for their actions?
A lot to think about. This deep dive has taken us right into the heart of the age of sail, a time of both great opportunity and great peril.
It really was.
It's been fascinating, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. If you did, make sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations of, history's hidden corners. We'll continue to uncover those stories.
That shaped our world.
And the questions that continue to resonate today.